Hey hikers and outdoor lovers, what if your next adventure could help cure children's cancer? With the Cure Search Ultimate Hike, that's exactly what you'll do. Choose from 8 breathtaking trails and destinations across the country, like Mount Tamalpais in the Bay Area, the stunning Jackson Hole, or the scenic Shenandoah Valley. And that's just the start. Here's the challenge. Each Ultimate Hike pushes you to go the distance, up to 28 miles in a single day. It's tough, but it's totally doable, no matter your fitness level. Shorter distance options are available, and you'll get expert training every step of the way, both in person and virtually, so you'll be ready to tackle the trails like a pro. And as a special thank you for tuning in to the Hikes and Mikes podcast, you can register for the 2025 Ultimate Hike for free. Just use the promo code Hikes and Mikes when you sign up at theultimatehike.org, and your registration fee is waived. Ultimate Hike is the nation's largest endurance program dedicated to funding childhood cancer research. So if you're ready to lace up your boots, hit ultimatehike.org and let's hike together to make a life-saving impact. Don't forget, use code Hikes and Mikes, all one word, for free registration. Let's hit the trails and cure kids' cancer. Welcome everyone to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the United States and beyond. Throughout these fall months, we've had the privilege of conversing with some remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we have an amazing couple out of the Pacific Northwest. Their names are Meghann and Zach, and you can follow them on Instagram at the Grah Life. Garh Life. We talked to Meghann and Zach about some of their favorite hiking destinations in and around Washington State, including Mount Rainier and Olympic National Parks. They also share with us about their amazing trip out to Finland to catch the Northern Lights. And you don't want to miss out on hearing about their bioluminescent kayak trip in Puget Sound. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Meghann and Zach. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm really excited to have these local Pacific Northwest folks on the podcast today. Their name is Meghann and Zach, and they're going to be sharing about their experiences, both here and in Washington and abroad. Meghann, Zach, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We always like to start off by having our guests talk a little bit about themselves and how they got started hiking.
Yeah, well, so both of our families, like growing up, were pretty outdoorsy. My family, like my parents would always take me and my siblings on hikes and into caves and all sorts of stuff. So kind of grew up doing it. And I think Zach's family was pretty similar, lots of camping. And we didn't really start hiking and being outdoorsy ourselves until we were like mid-20s, I think. And that was just kind of friends invited us on a hike and we were okay. It's been nonstop ever since.
Yeah, both of us grew up doing a lot of road trips, car camping, all of those types of things. But I don't think that we got serious into hiking really the past 10 years or so. And ever since, I feel like we've just amped it up every single year.
And I love your guys' story because, people outside of Washington won't know this, but there is a friendly rivalry between the West Side and the East Side. And Meghann, you're from the East Side. Zach, you're from the West Side. How'd you guys end up meeting?
We met at college. So I went to college on the West Side at Pacific Lutheran University, and Zach did as well.
We both happened to be freshman orientation guides and probably wouldn't have even connected given that she was studying art. I was in the School of Business. So it was really cool that we met through that program, and then the rest is history.
And, we're recording this in the middle of fall, and I've been asking all our guests this season to share a little bit about summer hiking experiences. Any memorable ones that stand out?
We bought a house that's about an hour away from Mount Rainier National Park, which has been awesome because it enabled us to do a lot of sunset hikes after work during the summer season. So being able to go experience some really awesome trails, get some peak views and just see that beautiful golden light. I think that's what's really stood out to me. And then, so we capped it off with a backpacking trip over Labor Day weekend to Enchanted Valley by Lake Quinault. And it was really just stunning. It was surprisingly hot in the Olympics. It was in the 80s over Labor Day weekend, but getting to do the 20-mile out and back trail and see the chalet towards the end of the primary trail was beautiful.
You know, we talked about this before we started recording, but the first half of October didn't feel like fall here in Washington State. It was still like in the 70s, sometimes even 80s, and March Madness was definitely underway over the last week and a half. What was your fall experience like so far?
I would say that we didn't get as much hiking in because of just like work and other commitments, but we spent the middle of October up in the Mount Baker area. My sister had her wedding up at Heather Meadows and Artist Point, and for mid-October, seeing it 72 degrees and sunny with beautiful fall colors, you just couldn't ask for a better day up there. And then the crazy thing was that just a couple days after the fact, they got enough snow to close the Artist Point Road. So not only do I feel like we were lucky to get up there for the wedding and enjoy that time, but it's just a reminder of how fast the seasons do change up here.
And I'm pretty sure it's closed for the season. They have no plan on reopening it, right, guys?
Yep,
That's correct.
It'll open in, July.
Now, I feel like March Madness has gotten crazier and crazier each year here in Washington State. What's been your experience like with March Madness, and is there any favorite places that you like to catch the larches when they're turning?
Well, the first time we tried to go on a larch march, it was in the Central Cascades. I think it was by Minotaur Lake. I can't remember because we didn't actually go on the hike. We figured, okay, we'll get there late. Usually to avoid crowds, we either get to hikes really early or really late for sunset. So we figured we'll sleep in, we'll let all the, early people do their thing, and we'll arrive after 3 o'clock or so and go for sunset. And we got not even a mile up the forest road, and it was just backed up with cars. And of course, it was pretty much a 1-lane forest road. So there's people trying to get down the trailhead, people trying to go up to get parking. And after sitting in it for 10 minutes and not moving, we turn around.
Yeah, it was probably like an additional 4-mile backup of just cars on the forest roads. So we bailed that time. Last year, we finally went up to Maple Pass, and we were like, okay, we'll just go sleep near the trailhead in the car, start our hike super early in the morning, and no one's going to be there because, most people don't go out and towards the end of the week and sleep in their car to start a hike. And it was packed, like Cutthroat Pass, the other side of the freeway. The whole trailhead parking lot was full of people doing the same thing. It was a stunning hike, and I'm really glad that we did it. But it's also like almost at a point where most of these trails, especially on Highway 20, are like past capacity. So I think that, for us, when we do large marches, it's again, we're going to venture even further out, like to the Okanagan or other parts of the Cascades, and just try to experience a little lesser traveled trails, and also just to minimize the impact on some of them. But it's stunning and worth it because of how beautiful it is up there. And I could understand why there's the crowding that there is, but it's also just gotten crazy in the past couple of years.
I think this year the Forest Service implemented that you couldn't spend the night in your car at the trailhead. It got so bad last year that wasn't allowed. And I'm the same way with you. Like I did Maple Pass 3 years ago, and it was beautiful. Loved it, but seeing all the craziness, especially on Highway 20, it's like, no, I'll wait for the Western larches, even though they're not as small and as vibrant as the Alpine larches. I'll do my larch march in a little bit less crowded situations.
Yeah, we will never forget leaving Maple Pass. Probably it was like 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. Highway 20 with probably 2 or 3 miles of traffic in either direction from people trying to do those hikes. It was an experience.
Now, one thing I'm curious, because you're an hour away from Mount Rainier, and right now with Chinook Pass still open, I'm an hour away from Rainier. But on the east side, how do you describe the hiking scene in and around your local neck of the woods?
I guess around Rainier, it's busy. It's always been that way. I would say that we really describe our local hiking area as like the Pacific Northwest in general, because we're willing to drive like 3 or 4 hours for a day hike.
Yeah, we chose where we live we're pretty central to the three national parks. Like they're pretty good drives and for each of them, but we're in all three of the national parks in Washington on such a regular basis that it's important to be somewhat centrally located for us. I think the cool thing about hiking in Western Washington is just the variety of hikes. I mean, from hundreds of waterfalls to the ocean to rainforests and then getting up in the mountains as well. It's really a privilege to live just an hour away from so much diversity when it comes to hiking. And we've traveled all over the country and we thought about living outside of the Pacific Northwest, but there's just something special about hiking and being outdoors here.
I've finally made it out to the Olympic Peninsula to do some hiking this summer. And I mean, I love Rainier in and around there, but there's something about that Olympic National Park that's just something else.
That's probably our favorite. If we were to choose one of the three in the state, it's so expansive. It's so quiet compared to some of the other parks. And I mean, the hikes are unlike anywhere else.
And I don't know if you guys saw this. I forgot who the YouTuber is, but apparently the quietest place on earth is somewhere in the middle of Olympic National Park. That's one thing about that park that I have to agree. It's really quiet and I mean, it's diverse in itself from all regions, both tip of the peninsula and then further down.
When we were backpacking in the Enchanted Valley, I remember we got to the chalet that's at the end of the trail and I was like, what's that sound? And listened for a minute and oh, it's an airplane. I was like, wait, we haven't heard airplane for this whole trip? And that was pretty wild.
Yeah, and that chalet was cool because I mean it's 100 years old and it was originally going to be developed, or there was a hope that it would be developed as a highway from the south to the northern part of the Olympic Peninsula. I'm really thankful that it wasn't and that all of that land is protected because you get that quiet experience today. But I could only imagine how different it would be if they had put a highway through the western side of the Olympics.
And guys, one question that I knew I had to ask you because of your guys' backgrounds, being from opposite sides of the Cascades, is for me personally, once the mountains open up, I'm in the mountains throughout most of the summer months. But then come late fall, winter, and even early spring, I'm in the high desert. Meghann, one of my favorite places in all the state is Ancient Lakes and Frenchman Coulee. I think it's just a beautiful place that doesn't look like anything that you would imagine Washington to look like. And besides the popularity with climbers, it's still not well known when it comes to the hiking scene. So I do want to ask, Zach, you being from the west side, what's your favorite Eastern Washington hike? And then on the flip side, Meghann, what's your favorite Western Washington hike you've been on?
Mine is Mount Storm King in the Olympics. I just want to be on mountains, on summits in the summer. And that one's awesome because it's accessible year round. It's a great workout. It's really steep. But when you get to the top of it, you've got not like 360-degree views, but at least 180, and you're overlooking the lake, and it's a pretty small summit.
Yeah, for me, I definitely think that my favorite Eastern Washington hike is the Chelan Lakeshore Trail to Stehekin. We got a chance to backpack that for the first time 2 years ago now. And I mean, from just the variety of wildflowers to seeing black bears and possibly even a grizzly bear from the hike for our first time, it was really just special. Like you hike along the shore after taking a 3-hour boat ride the lake, and it just feels like you're in Norway or somewhere else with the steep cliff sides next to the lake, and then you just get to this beautiful little town that has 85 residents. And it's too bad that they had a fire in the surrounding area this year. We're eager to get back to that one just to see how it's changed, but it's hands down one of the most special places that I visited in Eastern Washington.
I gotta agree with both of you. Meghann, Storm King is on my bucket list because everybody that has summited, especially during sunset, pictures have just been like, I don't think they even do it justice what you see on a sunset from Storm King.
Yeah, it's incredible. You get to not quite the top, and then you'll see a little sign and it says, "This is the end of the maintained trail." And that's where we usually see people having panic attacks because there's you're basically at the edge of a cliff and there's just a rope, and you just use this rope to climb up like scree, which is loose dirt and rocks. And The ropes are put there by climbers, I assume. Those are the people with ropes. So you don't really know how long it's been there, if it's worn out, if it's good. We usually I'll go up first. I'm lighter. So figure, if it can hold me, then I'll look at the rope when I get to the top of it and I'll let people know if they should trust it or not. Yeah, after you get to that rope, there's, I think, 2 more ropes. 3 more ropes? I don't know. They keep adding ropes. So, yeah, it's kind of sketchy, but I like it.
As someone with a fear of heights, it was unnerving the first time that I did it. But now, it's not that bad. And it's just kind of fun for us. I didn't want to do the ropes the first time that we did that hike. And then since then, every time that Megan's doing a photo shoot in the area, I'll just go summit Storm King by myself while she's doing her photo shoots. And I've even now checked it off in the snow where you're doing the ropes wearing micro spikes and going up there in the snow.
After he told me that he summited in the snow, you did what?
We really don't repeat a lot of hikes in the state because there are so many new trails to check out. But Mount Storm King is definitely one of those hikes that we're always willing to do.
And I got to ask, Zach, was there anybody else or did you see any footprints on the way up?
There were 2 other people, and then I ran into them again at the bottom, and they're like, whoa, you made it. Good job.
Oh, that's awesome. To this day, one of the best bakeries. I'm blanking on the name, but the bakery there in the town is just...
Hekin Bakery, I think. And it's the only backpacking trip that I've gained weight on.
People were hyping it up, and I assumed that it was good because it's your only option, basically. But it was incredible. 10 out of 10.
And it was kind of funny. We got to town and, went shopping at the little store, which is kind of like a gas station convenience store. It had chips and Gatorade. After backpacking for 2 days, it looked amazing. And we're like, oh, we'll just grab breakfast from the store, next to the campground the morning we leave. And of course, we get there and we're like, there's nothing for breakfast here. I don't want potato chips or jerky for breakfast. I was like, all right, I have enough time to bike to the bakery and back to get breakfast before the ferry comes. So I ran down to the bike rentals little stall and rode the 2 miles to the bakery and back. And Zach just stayed by the bags and watched our stuff. And I came back with a loaded bag. I was like, I got snacks. We got breakfast.
We were probably their best customers for that trip, for sure.
You guys had it fully prepared for the ferry ride back to Chelan.
Yes, I was not hungry.
I was blown away at how beautiful just riding on the ferry that whole way was. I would do that again in a heartbeat just to see the cliffs and see the shoreline the whole way out.
Yeah. Even if folks don't want to hike, I think I'd still recommend them just go out there for a day visit. It's really a unique place. Now, guys, you've been able to share your experiences at, our national parks here in Washington, the big 3. And, you talked about Storm King. I wanted to get your experiences at North Cascades and then especially Rainier since it's the closest one to you.
Yeah, I'll go first to talk about Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier, it's just amazing with how much diversity there is between the Longmire side or the Paradise side and Sunrise. And throughout the year, being able to do hikes on both sides, even some that are open pretty late into the season or early into the summer season, is incredible. I think that one hike that stands out to me in Mount Rainier National Park is Comet Falls. Comet Falls is a short and sweet hike to a waterfall, and then you could extend it up to, I think, another 10 plus miles if you really wanted to through connecting trails. I mentioned before that we don't really repeat hikes in the state, but that is one of the hikes that I will always show visitors who come to Washington and that I'll make a habit of doing at least once a season. This summer was the 10th time doing that hike. And it's been incredible in every season, even up to seeing it in the snow. You basically hike 1.8 miles each way to get a 300-foot waterfall view. You have pikas, wildflowers, and much more. And then you could extend it by going up to a couple different meadow/park views where you get Mount Rainier in all its glory.
I did want to quickly ask, they had the pilot for the timed entry this summer at Mount Rainier. What was your guys' experience with that?
I would say that it didn't really change how we visited the park because we always go really early or really late just because we don't want to sit in the lines at the entrance. So we noticed that we were getting into the park by 7 to 7:30 since the timed entry started at 8, and we just noticed that there was a lot more cars, a lot more visitors doing the same thing. So I think we got to Comet Falls at 7:30 or 8, and the parking lot was, I don't know, half full. That parking lot holds like 15 to 20 cars, but normally it would be empty that early on a weekend, and it was half full.
Yeah, I think in general, our approach is to hike really early. We like sunsets and sunrises, so our goal is to get into the park really early or stay and enter the park really late, just because we want to experience trails with fewer crowds. But I definitely would agree with Meghann that this season showed that it was pushing, the timed entry permits were pushing people to the fringes a little bit more. So I think that more people are starting their early morning hikes at 7 instead of 9, or starting their afternoon hikes at 4 o'clock. So I'll be curious to see how they evolve the timed entry process. But I do think it's an important process to have so that you don't have overcrowding and dissatisfaction with the park.
No, same here. I'm interested in seeing how, if any adjustments they'll do next summer. Meghann, what are some of your memorable experiences at any of the 3 national parks?
Oh, well, for my birthday this year, and my birthday's in May, I requested that we go backpacking to the Ozette Triangle in the Olympics, and I wanted to go see it because there are petroglyphs there, and the petroglyphs actually, they were in a landslide, so they slid off the cliff and they're in the ocean, so you can only see them at low tide, and it's one of those things that you should see sooner than later because they're in the ocean and in the elements and they're just getting worn down. But it was really cool. The hike there was beautiful. So you're hiking through like rainforest and like coastal forests, and the camp it wasn't on the beach, but it was in the forest, which was great because the forecast looked terrible for the whole weekend. It was going to rain. And the day we hiked in, it didn't rain. So we just did everything that we wanted to see that day instead of spreading it out over the weekend. Hiked to Wedding Rocks where the petroglyphs were, and it's kind of like a treasure hunt finding them. There's one really large petroglyph. It's like a big whale, a smaller whale, and then maybe like a couple faces. And other than that, all of the rest of them you really have to hunt for. It was an awesome birthday present.
Yeah, because of the forecast, we turned a 2-mile hike into like an 11-mile day. We just maximized as much as we could that day. And to kick off backpacking season with something like that, where you're getting stunning views and it's pretty low effort to do the hike, you can't ask for a better spot. And it was probably one of the prettier beaches that we've backpacked or hiked to in the state.
It was one of those trips where we instantly knew like we have to come back here and repeat this one. Whereas Enchanted Valley, like, okay, the forest was really pretty, seeing the chalet was cool. I'd repeat the trip if we like went past the chalet and like wanted to hike up Anderson Pass, but otherwise no. But Ozette Triangle, I'm like, okay, we could like camp at 3 different spots. I just want to go back.
You learn so much about just the history and the cultural significance of the area. And you're going through a rainforest, you get the pitcher plants and boardwalks, and then you get stunning ocean views too. So it's really got everything, and it's for every skill level.
And it had the best tide pools we've seen in years, like maybe a decade even, like since childhood, I think.
Oh, you guys have sold me. I mean, you had me at petroglyphs. And like you said, since they're exposed to the elements, they're only going to get worn down with each season. So definitely going to add that to the bucket list. You know, we've talked about Storm King and summiting that peak and some of the other peaks you guys have been able to go on. One of the more famous ones was you were able to cross off Mount St. Helens. Can you guys share a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so in the summer, summiting Mount St. Helens, you have to have a permit, but it doesn't require technical climbing experience. You just walk up the mountain. We've gotten permits 4 times, and we've attempted it like 3 times. The first time we did it, it was with my parents, and got 2/3 of the way up the mountain, and then just whiteout conditions. It was snowing and hailing and pretty miserable. So we decided to turn around. The visibility was getting to be iffy.
We could probably only see like 30 to 50 feet in front of us, and we were on the boulder field on St. Helens.
We could see the next trail marker down, but not anything past that. And we're like, okay, it's getting a little sketchy there. The first time we hiked, it was like the 3rd or 4th weekend in September. And if we would have hiked 2 weekends earlier, it would have been beautiful. beautiful. The next year, we got permits 2 weeks earlier. Had the same terrible forecast. Of course, 2 weeks after that, it was beautiful. But, what can you do? The permits limit you. So the third year we got permits, we took work off and got a weekday in August. And it was clear skies, beautiful. We saw I think 5 volcanoes.
Yeah, like all the surrounding
peaks past Mount Hood to Mount Jefferson, I think. And you could see into the crater. It's got different colors lining it, and it's steaming, and it was just perfect. And then we did it a fourth time with my parents again in September, and it was overcast and foggy, and you can't see into the crater at all.
It was perfect hiking.
Great hiking weather.
Yeah.
But I was a little disappointed for my parents because they didn't go with us in August. So I was like, yeah, there's great views into the crater. You just have them all in clouds.
It's honestly an awesome peak to check off because there's no real technical experience required during the summer months. And I don't know, 11 miles round trip, and it's not terribly steep. It's just the last mile is hard because it's kind of ashy and sandy. So it's basically 1.5 steps forward, 1 step back the whole way up.
Oh, man. And I got to ask, some of the permits are starting to get hard to come by here in Washington State and across the nation at some of the popular sites. How hard or how easy is it to get a summit permit?
I don't think it's that bad. So if you're trying to do it during the summer months, making sure that you're choosing a weekday if possible or a Sunday for your permit day. And I think that these permits, they open the month prior for the following month. So just making sure that you're prompt with logging on and calling.
I'm usually the one that gets the permits. So I have different opinions. They go live at 7 a.m., I think. I will log on to recreation.gov or wherever permits are sold for anything we're doing 10, 15 minutes beforehand, make sure I'm logged in. And as soon as the time is changed to 7 o'clock, refresh your browser, get your permits. You better have the date you want chosen, especially if it's on a weekend. And if it's on a weekend, good luck. Probably not going to happen. Have dates chosen, have backup dates chosen. Ideally, just go on a weekday. Have really good internet. I've heard people complain about never being able to get permits for camping and stuff because they're trying on their phone. So do it from a desktop. It's hard. And I also know people are like, oh, I got permits for St. Helens in May. I'm like, oh, it's going to be snowy in May, right? Are you prepared for that? Do you know what to do, avalanche danger and whatnot? That's why you're able to get permits in May. It's not an easy climb in May. So go from July to mid-September if you want, good non-technical climbing experience.
Solid tips, guys. And flipping the script, going to the opposite side of the state, I think, and maybe it's just my perspective because it's one of the furthest points for me to access, and that's Mount Baker Wilderness Area. I've just seen pictures and videos of its beauty, and it's definitely high on my list to visit in 2025. And you guys have had some great experiences. Like you were saying, you went up there right before the road closed. What's been your guys' experience visiting and exploring the Mount Baker Wilderness?
I think it's stunning and sometimes surprising that it's not part of the official North Cascades National Park with how beautiful it is. It's also really busy. It's gotten a lot more popular in the past 3 to 5 years. And really that's the case with everywhere across Washington State. But I think that Mount Baker requires some strategy if you want to do some of the bigger hikes. So making sure that you're starting ideally on weekdays or going for sunrise or sunset hikes. But it's also just an incredible area to just get lost in the wilderness for a little while. We've been lucky enough to do a lot of sunset hikes, whether it's the Chain Lakes Loop or going up to Yellow Aster Butte. I mean, it's just, I don't know how else to describe it besides stunning.
I would say that, first of all, the drive up the highway is possibly the most scenic drive in Washington. And no matter what your fitness level is, you're going to have amazing views. People tailgate at the parking lot at Artist Point. So even if you're I can only handle 5-minute walks out of the car, cool. You can stop at Nooksack Falls and then Picture Lake Heather Meadows, and then Artist Point. And that alone is stunning. And then if you get out and hike either at Heather Meadows or Artist Point or one of the trailheads along the way, even better. There's a hike for every skill level.
From accessible ramps around beautiful lakes with reflections of Shucksen all the way to multi-day backpacking trips. It's a special place. I guess the other thing that I would add to that is just that it's like Artist Point is probably the best area to watch the sunset in the entire Pacific Northwest. Just being surrounded by all of those mountains and, like Meghann said, even just being able to set up in the parking lot and have stunning views or get a quarter mile down a trail and watch the sunset.
No, I know we've been focusing a lot on Washington, but you guys have done some amazing travel and hiking experiences, both domestically and abroad. Let's start off domestically. What have been some recent domestic destinations that stick out for you?
Well, we spent a lot of time in Oregon, like over the past year or so, just the Oregon coast. And we recently visited Silver Falls State Park and hiked the Trail of 10 Falls. It's an 8-mile hike, but it has 10 waterfalls on the hike. And within like the first 10 minutes, you're walking behind this ginormous, really tall waterfall. That was our favorite waterfall because you get to walk behind that one too, but it's a really wide one. So you just stick your hand out and feel the water like coming down on it. And it was just so cool. I think there's one or two other waterfalls that you could walk behind on that trail too. That's like a lot of bang for your buck. I don't know any other hikes that have 10 waterfalls on them. And they're not seasonal. So you can go visit it any time of year. We visited in March. Yeah. So it was raining most of our hike, but everything was super lush. The falls were flowing really well. And I guess it gets really busy in the summer months. Go figure. So it's one of those that's accessible all year round. Like, why not go visit it between fall and spring when it's a little less crowded and the waterfalls are really flowing?
We've been all over Oregon and we love visiting everywhere from Bend to the coast to Southern Oregon as well. But we hadn't spent much time in the Salem area. So seeing that hike was really cool to finally check that one off. We both love waterfalls, probably me more than you, but it was a really special hike. And then I think that outside of that, the other notable like domestic place that we've gone hiking recently would be Sedona. And that was our first time my first time hiking in Sedona, your first time really as an adult hiking in Sedona. And similar to Bend or Moab, it's a place that just has activities for everyone. And it's just incredible that you could be almost in town and have those stunning views, but then you get 5 minutes down the road and you're either on a dirt road or you're seeing petroglyphs and learning about the history of the tribes in that area. So like that was one of those places that I feel like even with a long weekend, we only scratched the surface of what we could or should be doing there.
I'm sure you know Sedona is really popular in the spring and the fall. And we went in February or March, and it was just perfect because it was warmer than it is here in Washington, but not so warm that you had to like adjust a lot. So it was perfect because, a little reprieve from the rain here, but not terribly hot.
That was actually a funny story because sometimes we want to take a trip and we don't quite know where we want to go. So we'll go on Google Flights, Explore feature, and we will choose an area with super affordable prices and we'll just go to that destination. And in the middle of February, there was really affordable pricing that year for Sedona trips, basically. And then we started looking into it after we booked our flights and we were wondering why there was like no availability in any of the hotels in downtown Phoenix, and those that were available were astronomically higher. And then after doing a little bit more digging, we realized that it was the Super Bowl weekend in Phoenix. So it was just like a lesson to us that when we book these trips, we should also be a little bit more mindful of what could be going on to influence pricing as well. But that being said, Sedona was amazing still. It was just Phoenix that was crowded, and lesson learned about planning those trips.
Talking about views, one place that caught my attention from your trips abroad was you guys had a chance to visit Finland in the winter, and it just looked like an amazing, fun-filled itinerary. Can you share with us some of the memorable highlights from that trip?
Like after my experience with cancer, we were like we're going to make a bucket list and we're just going to start checking items off of that bucket list because life is fragile and we want to make the most of every day that we have. And that's why we probably come off as really overzealous with some of our hiking too, because we're just trying to make the most of every weekend or every time off that we have. Finland was basically on the list because we really wanted to experience the glass dome hotels under the northern lights during winter. So Finland and part of the Arctic Circle in Finland is one of the best places on Earth to see the northern lights. So we kind of planned this trip around that kind of experience. And I'll let you talk a little bit about just how we experienced it.
So we flew into Helsinki and then we took a sleeper train. The train in the winter is called the Santa Claus Express because it goes to the town that Santa Claus lives in. So that town is called Rovaniemi and it's just this Christmas themed village and it's got the most beautiful buildings. They're all lit up like pinks and greens and purples, like the aurora colors. And there's like reindeer rides.
Their post office actually collects the mail to Santa Claus. And so they had, I think that they said that they received like 20,000 or so letters per season. And then they had this display case in the post office that had letters from just about every country on Earth. So it was really cool to see all the different postage and the writing on all of these letters too.
And the thing to do there is to mail yourself a postcard. So you get a stamp from
the North Pole.
Yeah, from the North Pole, basically, from Santa. That was cool to be able to do that for like the Christmas season. And from there, we went dog sledding, which was extremely cold.
The average temperatures, like Rovaniemi is the start of the Arctic Circle. So once you're north of that, you're in the Arctic Circle. And I think that the average temperature was -7 Celsius. So it was still pretty cold. And then at times it got to as cold as like -10 Fahrenheit. So I think that packing for the trip was challenging. But dog sledding was amazing because you drive down these highways that are littered with reindeer on the sides of them because there's like 200,000 reindeer that roam in the Lapland area of Finland. And we got to dog sled on this like farm and I guess stop that's always been on the highway for 150 years. And you're, I don't know, like 90 minutes away from Russia. And it's just this cool farm town that you're in.
And I mean, dog sledding was awesome and cool. We got to pet the dogs afterwards and take a little tour of their kennels.
Yeah, learn about how they use the dogs for like just farm work, plus guiding hunting trips for moose in the region. And then just how they like phase dogs out and use them during their working life and then pamper them when they're past their working life. So saw some of the senior dogs that were just living their best life out there too.
Another tour that was like, as soon as we decided it was Finland that we wanted to go to, we saw icebreaker tours, and they are ships that break ice in the winter. Some of them break ice to create shipping lanes. Some of them are for defense, various things. So we got to go on an icebreaker tour, and you break ice in the Baltic Sea and go out to a spot, and then they put you in survival suits and you get to float around the Baltic Sea in your little survival suit. Oh my goodness. So to get dressed in it, they're like, okay, sit on this bench. And then they like shove you into this suit. It's like a wetsuit, but it's like 2 inches thick.
It's like padded.
And it's got a hood, and it was crazy.
Something to be said about it being below zero and floating in the Baltic and resting your head on ice, just like living your best life out in the water. So it was unlike anything that I've done.
And I'm cold. Like, I'm always cold. I have Raynaud's syndrome, so like my hands and feet go numb and I don't warm up easily. That was the experience I was most scared for. So afterwards, they give you like a little certificate, and I like took a picture with mine because I was so proud of myself for doing it.
And then outside of that, we headed up from Rovaniemi. It was like 4 hours driving time north into the Arctic. And so you're pretty close to the Arctic Ocean. You're almost at the edge of Finland, where Finland connects with Norway again at the very top. But on our way up, we got to go gem mining, like to an amethyst mine. They pick you up in a snowcat, take you up to a mine. You get to learn about mining and how they conserve resources in Finland. And then you go into an underground part of the mine and get to like mine for your own amethysts as well. So that was really cool to experience. We got the glass dome experience that we were looking for in Avalo, which is this beautiful resort area up really far north in Finland. And they had like reindeer on the property. They had this sauna that was down on a frozen river. So we got to book sauna in the evening and go experience being in the sauna and then doing a cold plunge in the frozen river, then going back in the sauna and then cycling through that. And we got the northern lights while we were up there. So just as stunning as we had hoped it would be.
One of the other things we did was go on Finland's longest toboggan run. And they don't have mountains. They have like some fjords and hills. So you're thinking, oh, okay, like a toboggan run, that's cool. Like, why don't we have them in Washington? It's because we have mountains and that would just be insane. But this toboggan run, it said like you could go down with guides your first time, and the guides have ice axes and helmets, or you can just go down by yourself. And, they tell you like, okay, just stick your feet out of the toboggan to brake, and you lean and brake to turn. Like, that sounds simple enough. Oh, and so it's Aurora tobogganing. Everything is like Aurora themed there. So it's night. There's like 3 hours of daylight, so it's like dusky by the time we arrive, and the lights on the trail are like flashing green and yellow and purple. The first time we go down, we had enough light, we got down it, decided to go again, and at that point, we realized the lights are not constantly on. Thank goodness we did it while there was some light, because you couldn't see the trail when the lights were flashing between colors. We got down to the bottom and Zach was like, wow, you're doing really good. Like, you're going so fast. You went faster than me? And I was like, that was not good. I was completely out of control. And I've never been faster down a sled than him.
It was like a 5-kilometer or longer run. So you're getting up to speeds of probably 25 miles per hour on a toboggan. And it was insane, but awesome.
That is wild. Yeah. Your trip just looked amazing, and definitely, those experiences with the ice domes are on my bucket list, but now you got me interested in this toboggan thing, because it sounds crazy, but it sounds kind of like, one of those like when in Rome.
Yeah. It's one of those things, like they said, it's family friendly. I wouldn't consider myself like an adrenaline junkie, but I like doing adventurous things, exciting things. Like, I think climbing up the ropes at Mount Storm King is fun. So, like, yeah, doing a wild toboggan ride is fun. But I cannot imagine doing it earlier in the day when there would be more people there, or putting a kid on that toboggan. Because the second time I was completely out of control. And there was one time when, you have to go around a turn, and I was like, I have to slow down and turn. Otherwise, I'm going to fly off the corner into the forest and no one's ever going to find me. And I was like, I am going to knock myself out on a tree if I do not slow down. And it was kind of like, I need to, like, I am in charge of my life course right now. Like, I have to do this or I'm not gonna survive this. That's what it felt like.
Oh, what a wild experience. We're reaching the tail end of the questions and talking about memorable experiences. One thing that caught my attention from your feed, we always like to do a segment on the podcast where we do a deep dive into our guest IG and ask them about a post, a location that captured our attention. And I've heard of bioluminescent beaches and, being able to see it, but most of the time I think of like tropical locations. You guys have a post where you did bioluminescent kayaking here in Washington. Can you share a little bit about that?
So we thought the same at first, to be honest. Like, we first experienced bioluminescent on paddleboards in Miami, and you found that there were pockets along the Puget Sound and even on the coast that have bioluminescent, and a few places that offer bioluminescence, like nighttime kayaking or paddleboarding tours. So she surprised me with a trip out to the Port Orchard area on the peninsula for some bioluminescence.
Yeah, so there's a company near Olympia, or maybe the Hood Canal, I can't remember. One in Port Gamble, and then the other ones are up in Bellingham. And I think there's one by Anacortes or the San Juans. So those are like all your options. But the one in Port Gamble is actually the cheapest, and it was within what we consider a day's drive from us. So I booked that one, and really you could go see it on your own. You just need to go to a place that has a dark shoreline, which is hard to find rained on the Puget Sound. So all of these kayaking companies, they have the know. And yeah, it was perfect. We did it in the, I don't know, early spring, and there was rain in the forecast. And I was like, oh, that sounds kind of miserable, kayaking in the rain. It didn't rain for our trip, but if it would have, the bioluminescence requires like movement to glow. So if it were to rain while you're on this kayaking trip, it would have been like stunning. You would have just been surrounded by it. So I would say, yeah, go in the spring or the fall, or, between spring and fall, is when they run. So just book your trip anytime. Doesn't matter if it's going to rain or not. That'll just make it better.
Peak seasons for bioluminescence, depending on where you're hunting for it. Anyone who's interested in doing it, just research the area that they're going and the type of bioluminescence that they want to see to make sure that they're hitting the right location at the right time. This was incredible. You're on the Puget Sound, you're kayaking. Every time your paddle is gliding through the water, you're seeing these like bright blue stripes next to you. So you start splashing with the paddle and seeing blue bioluminescence going everywhere. Since then, we've hunted out bioluminescence. It shows up in decaying logs on the Olympic coast. And you could see that after dark as well. You could see the greens or the blues and the waves as they're crashing, depending on the time of year. So it's all around Washington and really the whole West Coast. You just have to hit it at the right time.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'll definitely put in 2025. Now, these last three questions are questions we like to ask all our guests. And the first one is, when it comes to reaching a summit or maybe an end of the hike, is there a regular routine that you guys like to do? For some of us, it's maybe packing a favorite snack or drink, a moment of zen, or maybe it's the meal afterwards. Is there anything you guys like to do once you finish your hike or you reach your destination?
I think that more often than not, we're both celebrating with like trail sandwiches together at the end of our hikes. And we were usually exhausted. We just crash, have some food, and then sometimes just sit silently enjoying the views. I really like the end point of a hike. Like, I'm in it for the destination that we're going to, and just being able to sit and just, I don't know, like zone out or find our zen with the views is amazing.
Yeah, just the same. We do sandwiches for our meal because it's easy and it works.
Yeah, like we prep some snacks and sandwiches like the night before, power through a hike, and then we just celebrate by just chilling with food.
Well, this next one is about your guys' pack list. Is there any luxury items that you tend to pack on a regular basis that falls outside of the essentials list?
It's kind of like on the 10 essentials, but the Garmin InReach Mini has just brought a ton of peace of mind to our adventures. And whether it's backpacking for a photo shoot or for ourselves and being able to send a text message via Garmin to loved ones, or really just to make sure that we have, trail markings if we need to. And then I guess more importantly, you're more likely to experience issues with your car at the trailhead than you are to have problems on the trail. So I think that that's just brought a ton of peace of mind to me, at least.
Yeah, because we like to go overlanding too. So we're driving, miles onto forest roads and whatnot. So just having peace of mind, knowing that if we do break down on a crazy road, at least, somebody's going to be able to contact us and know where we're at.
Yeah, and like, should we need it, having the SOS button there is just another peace of mind for us.
No, for sure. I agree with you guys. I don't have a Garmin, but I have a satellite communicator. I still don't know if I'm going to switch specifically to the cell phone once I get one that can do the satellite messaging. It might be nice to have that backup just in case.
It's one of those things where we're not quite ready to put all of our eggs in one basket, but that's probably coming.
Now, this last question, guys, is, we're at near the end of 2024. Is there any hiking or travel goals for the remainder of the year or for the upcoming year in 2025?
In 2025, we've got a pretty big adventure planned. So going to Finland and somewhere cold. I mean, it was on both of our bucket list, but Zach had decided that was the thing we were ticking off the bucket list first. So I said, if we're going to do that, if you're going to make me be cold for 2 weeks, I get to choose the next trip. And we are backpacking through the world's largest cave in Vietnam in 2025.
Yeah, so we're going to spend a few weeks in Vietnam and experience a lot of the country, but we're really excited for this trip in particular. We're going to spend a few days backpacking through the cave. I think that fewer people have been in this cave than on the top of Mount Everest. So just that experience alone will be incredible because there's like rappelling in the cave. There are lakes in the cave that you cross via kayak, and then just getting to camp at some of these incredible places. I can't even fathom spending that much time in a cave, but it's going to be a trip like nothing else.
Going to say it has its own ecosystem, its own river system. They found like 5 new species there when they discovered the cave back in the 90s. So it's going to be awesome. And, we're backpackers. We carry our own gear. We're self-sufficient. But this one, it is a tourist attraction. So there's going to be how many porters? Like 7 porters?
Yeah, they have like a lot of people that bring the camping to life in each of the spots and like cooking and stuff. We've never been on a guided trip like this, and I'm probably going to have a hard time not carrying my own stuff because I'm just going to want to help out. In that sense, it's going to be pretty easy for a multi-day backpacking trip as well.
I'm excited to not have to set up a tent, to have somebody else cook, stuff like that. So it's going to be very cushy. See if we can do regular backpacking after that.
Well, I look forward to seeing the pictures and the videos from that trip. That sounds like an amazing time, and looking forward to what 2024 has to offer for you as it closes out. Now, Zach and Meghann, the last section of the podcast is the This or That section, where we ask each guest 10 hiking related topics, and you just choose which one you prefer out of the 2. And I always like to do it with couples or brothers or multiple people because it's always great to see if there's any differences or if there's any similarities to the answers. But the first one is, do you prefer hiking in the summer or in the fall?
Summer.
Yeah, summer for me too.
And then this one's a tough one where I think we might have a deviation. Waterfalls or summits?
Waterfalls.
Summits.
And then this one's about a trail system, but do you prefer trails with switchbacks or would you rather go straight up?
Switchbacks all day.
Yep. We did Mount Washington on Snoqualmie Pass, and that one you can just see the entire trail, like where the trail goes for the majority of the hike, and it feels like you aren't going anywhere. So after that, it's like, give me switchbacks.
It distracts me a little bit.
At least I can feel like moving.
Now, this is our most controversial one, guys, but trek poles or freehand?
Trekking poles.
Trekking poles. Take the weight off your knees and protect your joints.
And then this one's about your footwear, but trail runners or hiking boots?
Boots.
Yeah, boots for me too.
You tried trail runners for a little bit. You shouldn't wear trail runners if you're going to carry a lot of weight. Learned that one the hard way.
Yeah, I like the ankle support.
Same here. And then this is another trail system question, but do you guys prefer a loop trail or an out back trail?
No preference?
Yeah, it's kind of both. Like, it's more about what we want to see on the trail.
Now, this one is one of the new ones for this season, but if you guys had to choose, would you rather hike on a muddy trail or a rocky trail?
Rocky.
Yeah, I think rocky for me too. I've spent the multiple days just getting sloppy on trails, and it gets old quick.
And these next 2 are the toughest ones, but sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Do we have to choose?
You can say both or neither. Those are options as well.
Sunrise hikes are a little more peaceful, usually a lot less people out and around, but sunset hikes you can sleep in and still experience the sunset. So
yeah, I would say both, and it depends on where the lighting is going to be as well, because sometimes you want to see the sun rising over your beautiful destination, and other times you want to see it setting over that destination.
And yeah, we're both photographers as well, so yeah, pointing out where the sun or stars are going to be, we're a bit nerdy like that.
And this one's a tough one, but spring wildflowers or fall colors?
Flowers.
Yeah, wildflowers.
And then the last one is, if you had to choose between the 2, would you rather do a steep climb or long distance?
Like, fine with either, but I think we tend to do more long distances than steep climbs.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, that was it, guys, for the This or That questions. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. For our listeners, if they want to check out your current adventures, your upcoming adventures, where are some of the places they can find you online and on social media?
So they can find us online at thegrahlife.com. So it's the GRAH life, .com. That's our last name, and it's kind of a play off of The Good Life. So that's our handles for all the social media too. We're pretty active on Instagram.
And we'll be sure to put those in the episode show notes so people can check them out. Zach, Meghann, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a blast talking with you both.
Thanks for spending time with us, and we'll have to hike with you when we're out in your part of the state.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to hit you guys up for my Olympic itinerary.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the time.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Meghann and Zach. We extend a heartfelt thanks to them for coming on the podcast. Make sure to follow their adventures on Instagram at the Grah Life. That's the GARH Life. Also, don't forget to check out the episode show notes to learn more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the fall months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday, with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure that you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit the like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, ursaminooroutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order.